Welcome back to the Overrated or Overhated series. You got us the plus 20 likes, so we're going to turn this into a fantastic series.
I'm excited.
But yeah, everybody should be. Well, hopefully we're going to help you guys out with your fantasy football teams. We're going to jump into our Week 2 overview, but before we start, we want to take a look at the people we chose from Week 1 and how they performed in Week 2. And what happened, Jess?
Well, it was a clean sweep across the board for us. All the trends were just as we predicted, so we'll see if that was a little bit of luck or if we can repeat it this week.
Yeah. All right.
I think we did a pretty good job. So let's go into Week 2.
Yeah, let's
all
do
right.
it. Jesse, give us the quarterbacks.
Yeah.
All right.
Let's start off.
Yep.
Overrated, Jesse.
All right, so if you didn't watch the last episode, I do the quarterbacks. So we're going to start with the overrated quarterback of the week, Colin Kaepernick. He had a great game. He had 26.5 fantasy points in the Week 2 blowout against the Steelers. Lots of the points were accumulated in garbage time in that game, but fantasy points are fantasy points. So let's start with going to the past seasons. He's really played 2 full seasons playing starting quarterback for the 49ers. He played 16 games in 2013 and 14, and he started all those 16. And we see him being a consistent, mediocre passer. Nowhere above that or below that. About 3,000 passing yards a year, about 20 passing touchdowns. His numbers have been pretty similar over the 2 years that he's really played. And last season, he was 17th among quarterbacks in passing yards and passing touchdowns. So with the passing stats, he's really not a good enough passer to be in the top 15 quarterbacks, which means his running would have to be spectacular to land him a top 10 spot. And although he finished second last year among quarterbacks in rushing yards, you fantasy owners out there know that rushing touchdowns are where the real fantasy money comes. And he only had 1 rushing touchdown last season, which left him as the 16th quarterback. And remember, he was the 17th among passers, so he only gained 1 rank from the rushing. So all in all, his rushing is overrated. His passing is consistent, but it's not good enough to be a top 10 quarterback. Unless his rushing numbers spike this year and he goes crazy in the rushing categories and wins them both, he won't be a top 10 quarterback this year. And right now, he is a top 10 quarterback, so it's the perfect time to flip him. Expect his value to go downwards.
And he's a little bit, any quarterback that runs the ball a lot is at least a little bit of an injury risk.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
all of them.
You get hit in the wrong spot once, and now he's out for the season, and there goes your fantasy season.
I mean, there's 2 sides to it because he has been sliding a lot more, been a lot of a safer runner lately, which is good for not getting hurt, but that's maybe the reason for the decrease in rushing touchdowns. He doesn't want to run as long. Maybe he doesn't want to get hurt. So let's move on to running backs. That's Colin's job in this series.
That it is.
So take it away.
All right, great. So we picked Carlos Hyde as our overrated running back. That's right. He had an explosive Week 1, over 30 fantasy points. I believe he was like one of the top guys for that entire week.
Yep.
Against Minnesota, over 180 total yards and 2 touchdowns. That's unbelievable. What a great week. We didn't know, how long would it take for him to fill in for Frank Gore's spot. Well, he slid in there and came out of the gates running. Did a great job.
Right after Reggie Bush came out.
Just took over. And that's a great point. You bring up Reggie Bush. That's one of the reasons why he's on our overrated list, is because Reggie Bush is doubtful for Week 3, but probably by Week 4 he'll definitely be back. At least the San Francisco 49ers are hoping. That's going to take away from his value. He came out Week 2, Carlos Hyde. He was hurt, but he still put up pretty good numbers. I believe he had 6 fantasy points. And for a few quarters, it's okay.
It's not bad for the time he played, yeah.
But I'm a big guy on matchups. And Week 3, he's got Arizona. Not really a great matchup. And Week 6 through 8, you're looking at the Ravens, the Seahawks, and the Rams.
That's so tough.
That is super tough. And, again, Reggie Bush, he's going to steal a lot of those passing downs. San Fran's offense is on a decline. That's why you picked Kaepernick. That's why I picked Carlos Hyde. All of them got great numbers because they had, garbage time because my Steelers crushed them. But that's so if I had to sum this up in a few words for Carlos Hyde, you're either going to sell high or don't rely. Sell high on Carlos Hyde right now if you can. Try and flip him, or don't rely on him as that top running back for your whole fantasy team because he could end up being disappointing the rest of this year. Rob,
All right.
running back.
Wide receiver.
Wide receiver.
So for those who don't watch, who didn't see the previous episode, I do wide receivers. So my overrated wide receiver, I chose Travis Benjamin, the wide receiver from the Cleveland Browns. In his first 2 weeks, in the games he played in the first 2 weeks, he combined for 204 receiving yards and 3 receiving touchdowns. That's well over 30 fantasy points combined. He scored well over 10 fantasy points in the first 2 weeks. I would not expect this to happen. Believe it or not, if you look on the depth chart of the wide receivers on the Cleveland Browns, he is the 5th wide receiver.
Wow.
He's behind Brian Hartline, Dwayne Bowe, Andrew Hawkins, and Taylor Gabriel. Those guys have not gotten nearly as much receiving yards or touchdowns as him. None of those guys have a receiving touchdown. None of those guys have even half of what he has over the receiving yards. That's because Johnny Manziel played for, I believe it's McCown, in those first 2 weeks because McCown got hurt. McCown will be coming back. So look for him to spread the ball a lot more. Travis Benjamin will not get the same points he did the first 2 weeks of the season. The upcoming schedule is a little tough too. In weeks 6, 7, and 8, those catch my eye. They're facing the Broncos, the Rams, and the Cardinals. Those teams have great secondaries, and they're going to lock down the poorly consumed Browns. And we know the Browns are not really that well. They're not stable at certain positions. Wide receiver is a shaky position because their former star was Josh Gordon, and he's no longer on the team. Everyone thought, Travis Benjamin has been in the league since 2012. He's never been an elite guy. His 2014 stats, he had 18 receptions for 3 receiving touchdowns and 314 receiving yards. He's already the same touchdowns as he had last year. He's very close to the amount of receiving yards. He's already a third of how many receptions he had last year. If you look at this trend, it looks like he can only go up. Believe me, when Josh McCown comes back week 3 tomorrow, he will not do, it's not a guarantee, but he will definitely, I believe that he will not get as many points as he has the first 2 weeks.
And if he's absent, that one big play, because those first 2 weeks he had one huge long touchdown.
Yes, for the 2 weeks he had 60-yard receiving touchdowns, which is a lot of fantasy points.
You take away that one play and he goes down, he drops 4 tiers of wide receivers.
That's true, but there is one thing I have to say. I think you said he was the 5th on the depth chart, but I think he's definitely moving his way up there.
Because Dwayne Bowe is hurt.
Yeah, and at the same time, he's going to have an up year. He didn't really get the chances last year. He didn't start any games last season, which is the reason that he's almost catching up to the numbers he had last season. So he's definitely going to improve from previous years, but where he's at right now, top 3 in wide receivers, don't expect him to be anywhere near that.
That's what we're trying to say. His production is not going to stay.
He's going to be a good guy to have on your bench, maybe even go up to the flex if he has a great year.
Yeah.
But
you want to sell him right now because a lot of people are high on him right now. And if someone can give you a good running back or wide receiver in return, I take it.
And a lot of wide receiver injuries, so they'll be on the lookout.
Remember, it's week 2, a long season ahead. I don't think we can keep it up. But Jesse, who do you got for the overhated quarterback?
Now, we're going to talk about Andrew Luck, the Colts quarterback.
Mr. Unlucky.
Mr. Unlucky.
Yeah.
So he had a rough loss to the Jets in week 2, had 8.4 fantasy points. And last year had an absolute breakout season. He emerged as an elite fantasy option, really. He finished as one of the best among all quarterbacks in multiple stats. In passing yards, he was 3rd among all quarterbacks. Passing touchdowns, he was 1st, and you can read down that list. He was the only player better in fantasy last year was Aaron Rodgers, who beat him by 3 fantasy points, mainly because he just threw barely any interceptions, while Luck had a little interception problem. But all in all, he was a great option last season. Now, since he was so good, you may be asking, what's going on? Should I be scared? And this is just for a little bit of relief. There are some reasons that he's struggling right now. Luck played against 2 great defenses in week 1 and 2. He played against the Bills and the Jets. The Jets right now are just rolling on defense. The Bills as well. They both just have great secondaries, linebackers, and defensive fronts. There's nothing wrong with those defenses. Also, T.Y. Hilton hasn't been 100% healthy, and he's really his go-to wide receiver. So when we see him come back, which he's questionable for this week, but chances are he's playing, you can see T.Y.'s numbers will spike, and Andrew Luck's numbers will spike. The Colts team, all in all, has struggled as a whole.
Right.
So, and when they're losing a game, Luck tends to become a little bit forceful. He's trying to make big plays for the team. Like, we saw him run down the middle when he couldn't find a receiver and try to make a big play, ended up losing a fumble to the Jets. He threw 3 picks last game because he's trying to force plays to happen so that he can win the game for his team, but that's not what he's meant for. He's better when he's more comfortable in there. And saying this, as the Colts improve, so will Andrew Luck. So look forward for this to happen in his next few matchups. He's playing the Titans and the Jaguars, which are great matchups for him and the Colts.
Excuse me. I like to add a point. Like you said, T.Y. is his go-to wide receiver. Last year, he had T.Y. and Reggie Wayne. Those two were his most reliable guys. And Reggie Wayne is gone from the NFL. T.Y.'s hurt. So like you said, he's young. He gets frustrated easily because he's not been in the league nearly as long as other quarterbacks have. So it's easy for him to get frustrated without those 2 star-studded wide receivers.
I think he also makes good wide receivers out of who he has. He can kind of create them. Like, he had 2 great tight ends last year, Dwayne Allen and Kobe Fleener. He both made into great fantasy tight ends and great game tight ends. So if someone's down on him in your fantasy league, trade for him as soon as possible, because there's a good chance that in week 3 against the Titans, that Luck has an awesome performance, and then you won't be able to get him. This is your last opportunity to snatch him in a trade.
Yeah, and Luck's the real deal. He's such a great player. He knows what to do. If he's got to run the ball, he'll run it. If he's got to throw, he's got to throw it. What I just want to say is that, we're not saying that, it's wrong to be freaking out about Andrew Luck. A lot of owners are, because Rodgers and Luck were the only 2 quarterbacks that people spent a high draft pick on this season. So it's not a bad thing to be freaking out right now, but we're just saying don't make a bad decision based on what he's done weeks 1 and 2, because he will bounce back. Yep. He's just too good of a quarterback for this to be happening.
Too good. He's going to have a great season. He just completely broke out last season, and he's going to continue it for years to come. So Colin, who's the overhated running back this week?
All right, our overhated running back, Jess, is Lamar Miller, the Miami Dolphins running back. I think people just need to stop hating right now on Lamar Miller. I know he had 2 straight weeks of under 10 fantasy points. Got 7.5 week 1 and 4.20 week 2. But he did get injured in the second game in week 2. So that 4.20 really isn't a good reflection for week 2. But people have to realize this was a guy who last year was a top 10 running back, fantasy running back. He had almost 1,100 rushing yards. He had a good bunch of, rushing touchdowns. He is definitely the number 1, running back in Miami. He does, I will say this, if I had to flip the coin there, I told you I'm a big guy on matchups, like I said in the beginning. He does have Buffalo and the Jets coming up as his next 2 weeks. That does not look good.
Yeah.
However, if you look way ahead, now when I draft, I don't look at the schedule when I draft players because you're looking at how they're going to do. But once the season starts, a lot of people look at the schedules because matchups, are important. When you get into your fantasy playoffs, week 14 and week 15 and week 16, he's playing some okay, shaky defenses. He's got the Giants, the Chargers, and the Colts. Those are some, maybe the Chargers are a little bit a step above, but the Giants and the Colts definitely have some issues. So I think, from a playoffs perspective, he's going to be great.
Yeah.
And in week 2, they played Jacksonville, and like he said, he got taken out injured, and they threw the ball 44 times. Ryan Tannehill threw it. That's a lot.
Well, yeah, because the Jacksonville had a poor secondary, and he could take advantage. And also, including your point, the next 2 weeks are going to be tough for the Jets and Bills. That's a time you want to buy low because a lot of guys are going to say, he's not going to do well these 2 weeks. Grab him. If you know he's not going to do well, put him on your bench if you have a good wide receiver or flex. And then once those matchups are done and over with, then you can get that sneak in there.
Yeah, and I really felt, at least coming into this season, that Miami was a complete team. They
got a lot better.
Quarterback.
Yeah, their quarterback's great. I like Ryan Tannehill. Lamar Miller's a great running back, and they have a good defense. They're just good all around.
Yep.
So, I know they had a little bit of a blip against the Jacksonville last week, losing to Jacksonville. But I think for the rest of the season, they're going to be, in every game. And they're going to be winning a lot of games because they're complete. And when you're leading in a game, what's going to happen? You're going to rush more, So he's going to get that attempts. He's going to get And more attempts is going to lead to more rush yards. He is too good of a running back. You got to buy low.
All right, so for my overhated wide receiver, it's kind of, Jesse mentioned Andrew Luck. I'm going to mention another Colt and T.Y. Hilton, Andrew Luck's number one wide receiver option. In the first 2 weeks of the season, he got 11 receptions, 133 receiving yards, and 0 touchdowns. That's 13.3 fantasy points. He got 8 points 1 week and around, 4 or 5 in the other. So those 2 weeks, you're not really accustomed to seeing that from T.Y. because his last year's stats were very impressive. He had 82 receptions for over 1,300 receiving yards, and he had 7 receiving touchdowns. That's pretty good. And this year, without Reggie Wayne, he is a more dominant wide receiver because it's him and Andre Johnson, the pickup of the season for the Colts. And if you look at the stats between him and Andre Johnson, it's an obvious sight that T.Y. Hilton is a lot better when he's healthy because Andre Johnson did not do well. He's not always healthy, and he's a veteran.
Yeah, he's old.
So Andre Johnson's first 2 weeks, he got 7 receptions for 51 yards and 0 touchdowns. So you can obviously see that even with T.Y. being hurt those first 2 weeks, he is still the main guy. And when T.Y. Hilton is fully healthy, gotta admit, like Colin's word, he's a monster.
Yes.
So, I mean, a lot of people are scared right now. Is this whatever injury he has, is this going to be a thing for the entire season? Or am I going to have to worry about him every week? Is he going to be a flex now? I drafted him as my wide receiver too. And I admit, I am a little disappointed. But you want to get him right now because, like I said, people are freaking out a little bit. And you want to get him for that low price, maybe a 2-for-1 deal, not giving up too much. Because, like I said, we all know his potential. And Andrew Luck isn't playing well either, so that hurts a little bit. Andrew Luck, like Jesse said, he has 5 interceptions in the last 2 games. That's a lot for him. We're not accustomed to seeing that from him. We're seeing things we did not expect to see from 2 great guys. And I'd expect both of them to turn it around because like they always have. And I really think it's going to happen.
And I just love with T.Y. Hilton, what he brings to the fantasy table. He can make a small play into a huge play.
Right.
And you know how touchdowns are so big in fantasy, like I mentioned before with Colin Kaepernick and the rushing touchdowns. Receiving touchdowns are worth the same. And when T.Y. Hilton catches it at the 50-yard line, he's so fast and quick and jukes people so much that he can catch it there and make a 10-yard catch into a 60-yard touchdown.
He can turn into it. I believe he can turn into a top 5 wide receiver if he gets healthy for the rest of the season.
I mean, don't expect that.
Don't expect. That's not a guarantee. But
is the Colts right now? They're 0-2, right?
I believe so.
I think that plays into it too because I know a lot of fantasy owners are going to freak out. They always do on injuries,
right? Because
they think they might reoccur and whatever. They're gonna make sure T.Y. Hilton's healthy before they put him back out on the field, especially because they have an 0-2 record and they really have to turn things around.
And Chuck Pagano said that he hasn't been healthy. He's been questionable the first 2 games, and he's been getting healthier every week. So I think week 3 is a week that he's gonna explode, and he's gonna be the normal T.Y. Hilton.
Yeah,
if he plays.
Which if you look at the information, everyone thinks he will, even though it says question.
I mean, even if he doesn't, he has the Jaguars in week 4. He's going to have some kind of breakout week sometime soon. So try to get him before that week, while he's low, while he's even a little bit hurt, because he's going to be healthy soon. He's going to be back to his normal, awesome form soon, and he's going to be that number 1 Colts wide receiver with Andrew Luck beasting on the field.
They'll both return to their form, and that is a perfect storm.
Yeah, it is. We just want to remind you guys, this is to help you out with your fantasy team, but this isn't just for the next coming week. This is for the entire season. So, if, by tomorrow you can't get these guys, it doesn't mean the next week you can't try and get them. We just think this is where they're going to trend up and trend down for the whole rest of the season.
Yeah, exactly. Especially during the next few weeks, but definitely during the whole season too. I mean, like trends don't just happen over a week. There's only 16 games in football. So if one guy has one big week, it's not like his trend went up so much. You got to wait a couple weeks and see if he's really improving.
Yeah.
So, that's pretty much it. Thank you for watching this. If you enjoyed it, like it up. And thank you for over 20 on the last one.
Yes.
Because now we're doing this series the whole way through the NFL season.
And we'd like to add one thing about a baseball legend who recently passed away earlier in the week. Yogi Berra, the former catcher of the New York Yankees for a long time, and he caught a year with the Mets. He was 90 years old, a 10-time World Series champion. And, we send our condolences and prayers.
Yeah, to his entire family.
Right.
Yep.
All right, that's it.
That's it. Hopefully we're going to be getting these out to you as much as we can. What do you guys think? Maybe every 2 weeks, 3 weeks?
Every 2 weeks. Every 2 weeks. So just keep watching, and we'll see you next time.
Yep. Shoot us with a comment. We want to hear what you guys have to say. We want to help you guys out.
Yep. See you next time.
All right, see ya.